Hello, and thank you. Good afternoon. Agatha Wooten Armstead was a black woman from North Carolina who told her husband, who worked the railroad, that I want to move to Maine. That's my dream, to be a gardener, a farmer. And he said, it's not going to happen. I'm not moving to the wilderness of Maine. But she convinced him with her $2,000 that she'd saved as a Rosie the Riveter during World War II. She was also a trained pianist. She was given the opportunity to study piano at the New England Conservatory of Music. She convinced her husband, let's move to Maine. And so he went, but only on one condition, that she learn how to make beer. And so she did, and root beer for their 10 children, 9 surviving. It was after she raised her children and became this extraordinary self-taught horticulturalist and gardener, organic gardener, that she decided that they would become foster parents. And I came into their care at 2.5 years old. I was forcibly removed from a white family. State law in the state of Maine prohibited black children to be raised by white families. And so that was a very difficult time for the family that I was leaving and the family I was going into. But Agatha was an extraordinary person, and she wove us all together. And she saw that I had this innate propensity to not just slaughter pigs on the farm, but I was grand-jetéing, and I was bourréing to the chickens, and I was doing port-de-bras, not knowing while I was picking the blueberries. And she's, I've raised 9 children out of 10, what is the child doing in the field? We were on 60 acres in Maine, backwoods Maine. And she said, this child needs creative dance classes. Now, I'm a pianist, I'm a jazz pianist, but I'm not a dancer. And so, as described in the video, she found a book. And she was a magician. No one knows where this book came from. It was all in stick figures. And so, in her S-shaped body, and I describe her that way because she had suffered a radical mastectomy in a time where the rib and the armpit, part of the armpit, were removed. She had Paget's disease, which is a softening of the bone, and so she was bowed. She had phlebitis as a result of the mastectomy. In this S-shaped body, she, with the stick figures, would show me first and second and third and fourth and fifth and sixth positions, all with the arm positions. One big arm, one small arm, nails always polished red. And we moved the same way as the stick figure, so there was no fluidity in the movement. It was very, first, and we were doing this robotic thing. And then she would go to the piano, and she was playing, Lion Willie Smith. She was playing all kinds of jazz music, and I was instructed to hold on to the doorknob of our farm closet door, and I would face that door 1 hour a day, practicing these steps. And that was my introduction into what Louis XIV maybe took for granted at Versailles at the age of 9, that this black woman from North Carolina who bought a farm for $2,000 was teaching me classical ballet that absolutely flabbergasted Esther Brooks. To see this relationship come together through art as a child was miraculous. It was Agatha that said, we've got to get you to the Cambridge School of Ballet somehow. And we made a pact. She said, we're not going to tell your social worker. Shh. We had lots of secrets. By the way, Agatha, among other things, was able to find the wiggle room between the rules. We love this, the creativity in her critical thinking. And so she said, you're going to take the Trailways bus. I was 9, and you're going to go by yourself, and you're going to cross state lines. And I understood what was happening. I knew the gravity of this because I knew this was the gateway to future, a beautiful, heavenly future, because my experience with dancing was either toe tapping on the Ted Mack Hour or the June Taylor Dancers. Anyone with me in the audience? And so, just seeing that formation, dancing was so extraordinary to me. And so there I was on the Trailways bus. She said, don't talk to anyone. Of course, I yammered on to the bus driver, and her son, who was a police officer, met me on the other end, and there we were whisked off to the Cambridge School of Ballet. And there we were at the Oddfellow Building in the mouth of Harvard Square, and I had never seen anything like this. I was in my red Keds, I had my best capris on, and I ran upstairs, and Esther stopped, and she said, "The audition's over, dear. You've missed the audition. But since you're here, let's see what you can do. Let's change into your leotard and tight." Leotard and tights? And she said, "Yes." Well, I said, I didn't have. I had my first, second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth positions with arm movements and my red Keds. And she told me to go into the dressing room and find something in the lost and found. So I ran and put on red pilled tights and a black washed out leotard, which hung down to around here. And I came back out, stocking feet, and I got into all my positions. I no longer wear red Keds, did you notice? But I still wear red shoes. And I got into those positions, and then she took me to the corner, and we did a series of chaîné turns, which is a series of consecutive turns. And she said, "Well, dear, where did you study?" And I didn't want to take her down this road of my life. And so I just said, "Grandmother." And she was stunned, and she immediately walked out this huge, beautiful building with floor-to-ceiling mirrors and fleur-de-lis banners everywhere. And she said, "This child has won a scholarship." And that scholarship lasted for 8 years, full scholarship. Esther knew the gravity of this circumstance for me. She soon found out other exponential circumstances in my life, and she provided car fare. She provided meals during summer. The power of one creative person. The genesis of 2 women and a third being my social worker, who did out-of-pocket service and said, "Don't tell anyone I'm going to give you the $12 for the Capezios, but for God's sake, don't tell my supervisor." People who found the creative way to make a way for a child. And so that, of course, led to American Ballet Theater in New York, where I won a full scholarship and then joined the junior company and went on to teach. And I came back to Roxbury, Massachusetts to teach for children, poor children like myself, or children who were disenfranchised in some way or another. I taught boys in sneakers and boys in ballet slippers. It didn't matter. This journey as an artist has taken me to India and Africa and Russia and throughout the world, and most recently Haiti. It isn't so much the plie. It is where the plie and the piano key have taken me. It has offered me an opportunity to pass it forward into now the Rowell Foster Children's Positive Plan. We are in our 20th year. It is an organization that is simply borrowing the blueprint from Esther Brooks, which is to give children access, an opportunity. I did not know when I was picking the blueberry that I was doing a pot de bras. I didn't know when I reached for the chicken it was an arabesque. I did not know, but it was in me, and I think we all have creativity in us. It just gets chipped, it gets tarnished, it gets suffocated. Some of us, it is fostered throughout our lives. Some of us have to find it within the deep reserves and recesses in ourselves to pull it out. Some of us, hey, we've got to become the doctor. Somebody's got to be a doctor, somebody's going to be a dentist. But some of those dentists and doctors that I know are some of the best photographers, are some of the best documentarians. We have to keep it moving. Creativity, for me, is like breathing air. It is my temple, it is my church. It informs everything that I do. Esther left the country during a very difficult time in the late 60s when our school was burned to the ground due to racial divide. I did not see Esther for 25 years. I was devastated. We all were devastated. All 100 of the students that she provided full scholarships for. She went above and beyond as a humanitarian and as a philanthropist. But I found her. I found her about 8 years ago. And I searched everyone's findable, and I sent the language of flowers to her. And she could not believe that a student had searched for her in this capacity. And I said, it is so important that you know what you did for me as an artist, as a person. She didn't want to take any credit, but I forced her to. As a result, she summers in New Hampshire. I was wedded on her property. We've gone to Sicily together. She wants me to go to Turkey. Oh yeah, she goes to Turkey and Syria and places like this that the State Department wishes that she wouldn't. But she is 85, and we travel together. And so creativity for me is not just, as I say, the exercise of the plie, the exercise of Les Sylphides or Giselle or being in a ballet company and the prestige therein, but reciprocity and the creativity of passing it forward. For it is not for us to keep, that we are vessels that give it to the next. And I see that my clock is at a pure zero. And so would that mean that there is no time to recite from the book? Maybe very quickly, I can recite very quickly. 1 minute, okay, 1 minute I can recite from the book. And so quickly, since I expressed the farm, I will just simply say what it was like getting that heart spirituality from Agatha. I promptly turned over, faced the wall, my nose against the moist air, held within the 200-year-old plaster. Ma was not only fiercely modest, but she was protecting my young eyes from seeing her disfigurement. This night, however, I needed to see for myself how deep her wounds were, how heavy her burden. Still facing the wall, I watched Agatha's shadow and silhouette fighting against itself on the pattern wallpaper. I had to see more. Ever so slightly, I peered over my shoulder to witness the agonizing struggle that she undertook to unfasten her corset with her phlebitic fingers. Curious to see what else was to be peeled away, I continued to spy as she removed her wig and pinned it onto a styrofoam form, moving next to lovingly applying cold cream to her face and throat. "Vicky," she whispered, not turning around to see whether I was awake or asleep, "always remember that the neck and chest are always a part of the face." In closing, Agatha knew all and sensed, of course, that I had been watching her. She knew that I had seen her without her wig, 2 thin braids pinned neatly beneath the artificial hair. She knew that I had seen her breastless body, curved, bent, wounded, but beautiful. I lay frozen. How did she channel away the pain, past and present, every night? Later I would find out. After winding her West clock and popping a Rolade, Agatha pinched out the last bits of light that instantaneously left us in complete blackness. In the time that the cricket sang his first notes, crucifixes and rosary beads were illuminated in a chartreuse glow. The creation of this light, I believed, had to be Agatha's private miracle. I joined her in reciting the rosary, not understanding why she prayed for redemption, or maybe I knew that she was as close to God as any human could be, and that through her I was with God too. I was still trying to figure out who God was or what God meant. But Agatha seemed to sum it all up for me, just lying there breathing with those plastic beads between her fingers. This was my fortress, and she was my belonging. And through God, I was with God too. Agatha was my fortress. She taught me merit, study, hard work, silent meditation, laughter, music, and dance. Thank you.